everyone! So this is the video about Mahler's 7th Symphony. My heart is so full of Mahler's music at the moment and just so full of love and admiration for Mahler that I just couldn't wait to talk more about Mahler and his 7th Symphony, what makes it so special and great and visionary and why I love it so much. So firstly, here is a portrait of Gustav Mahler that normally hangs on the wall on that side. More on that wall in another video. But I love this portrait because it's a caricature of Mahler that shows who he is. I mean, look at the serious expression, the glasses, hair going wild, passionate man. Big head. He was known for his intense expression. It's such a powerful expression of his personality. It's not that much of a caricature, actually. And here's a puppy that likes to hang out on my piano. Anyway, so what makes the 7th Symphony great? As you know, Mahler lived in Vienna at the turn of the century, at the turn of the last century, when the great symphonic tradition, the symphony as an art form, starting with Haydn and then Mozart, who perfected the symphony, on to Beethoven, who revolutionized, recreated the symphonic art form with every single symphony he wrote, until it just became the pinnacle of orchestral, non-sacred music, the pinnacle of reason, of emotion, where the form and the content becomes totally one, inseparable. Add to that the great deep human expression that he gave symphony, that it was no longer just a public art form, but it became something intensely personal and expressive. The birth of the Romantic Symphony. And ever since Beethoven wrote his 9th, all the composers following in his footsteps had the voice of Beethoven in the back of their head. A very famous example being Brahms, who struggled on his first symphony for nearly 20 years before letting it out into the world, because he just was not sure whether this was the symphony that could follow in the footsteps of Beethoven's 9th. And around the same time, not only was the question of the symphony as an art form in question, but also the question of tonality. By tonality, I mean the major mode, the minor mode, as you know, the C major, C minor, very clear, right? But this tonality itself, it's like an alphabet in musical language. This tonality itself was being questioned by the younger generation, the generation following Mahler, for example, Arnold Schoenberg. The whole tonal language came under scrutiny. Is this still what music should be bound by, as the atonalists would say? So Mahler, in his 7th Symphony, really stretches the limits of tonal language. He exhaustively explores the limits of possible music writing, music creating within the boundaries of tonality. And it's wild because take the last movement, for example. He explores every single possible links, not only the close tonalities that are traditionally grouped together as harmonious, but he takes his music to totally unexpected and farthest corners of the tonal region, if you will, and subjects his music to all sorts of vague tonalities, strange tonalities. And the miracle is, yet the music is so totally organic. It's so completely whole. Only a genius of Mahler could achieve this. Before the brief major minor tonality I showed you, to this major to minor transition or transformation is like thumbprint of Mahler. This is signature Mahler. You will find this in every single symphony. In the 7th, he writes a whole symphony out of this thumbprint. bar, you're questioning whether this is a major or a minor. Every bar, the shift is so subtle, he stays in the gray area of tonality. And this is why I call it enigmatic and mysterious. Because normally, happy, sad, but he's always staying on the borderline and trying to find new ways of expressing what he wants to tell us. And this is genius because then it's no longer a simplified major or minor mode. And all the connotations and associations we have by instinct with hearing a major chord or a minor chord. But this area in between that's so vague. And it gives these mixed feelings and mixed emotions, the totally unsure, sometimes insecure, sometimes constantly shifting feelings that we have in our hearts every single moment of our lives. And that's why this symphony is visionary. That's why it's progressive. And this symphony gives such limitless possibility to interpretation because of such complexities in tonality. That's just one aspect of compositional technique Mahler employed. Another special thing about the seventh is sometimes it's called the song of the night, the image of night, nighttime, darkness, mystery, intimacy. This is a very, very big theme in the Seventh Symphony. Firstly, the opening of the symphony came to Mahler. Mahler was inspired at nighttime when he was on a boat being ferried across the lake. And under the moonlight, dark night, the oars of his boat hitting the water, and suddenly the rhythm came to him of the opening. As well, the second and the fourth movements, he titles them Nachtmusik, night music. The third movement, the middle movement, is called Schattenhaft, shadowy. So this dark, mysterious, when seemingly nighttime, the subconscious takes over the consciousness, when deep, deep feelings takes over the daylight logic of your mind. And everything is under the starry night, sort of mixed. And this is portrayed in the music so powerfully. This darkness, this heaviness of heart, and balanced with such mysterious, beautiful melodies. For example, in the first movement, the second theme, this is like moonlight shining ever so brightly on the dark lake. I mean, the mysterious beauty. And why do I say mysterious beauty? Because when he writes his melody, it takes completely unexpected leaps and turns, and it soars, and that touches my heartstring so deeply and powerfully. It's not a melody that you would expect within the tonal scheme. He jumps to unexpected harmonies and notes. And that's why it makes it fantastic, as in fantasy and imagination, as in fairy tale. So fragile and so nostalgic, almost out of this world, balanced and coupled with music that's from the depths of the subconscious, from the depths of night and of water, the deep dark lake that inspired Mahler for the beginning of the symphony. The third movement, shadowy Schattenhaft, is the most wonderful and imaginative scherzo ever. Everything is shifting all the time. And the shifting, of course, happens with the harmonies. Is this in major? Is this in minor? You start to hear a melody, something that you could almost sing along, and then it changes its shape suddenly, completely, and it's not what it appears to be. It's shadows of things that we may not have noticed during the daytime. It's totally wonderful. The fourth movement, the second Nachtmusik, he writes Andante amoroso, amorously, loving, in love, it's a serenade actually that I think every person would love to hear under their balcony. And why is it a serenade? He uses mandolin, he uses a guitar, and the harp very prominently. So you've got that traditional troubadour kind of like atmosphere and sound. And on top of it, the most delicate and gorgeous melody. Only it's a love song saying goodbye, I think, because it starts with a refrain. It starts with the closing of the tema, and then the tema comes. And this refrain happens periodically. That I almost feel like this is the last love song that Mahler wrote, actually. This symphony was composed at a very happy time during his life, before all the tragedies struck his life, before his child died of illness, before he discovered his wife's infidelity, which nearly killed him, before he resigned from his position in Vienna Opera. Everything that was so precious to him as a man, as a human being, as an artist, that got taken away from him almost the very years after he wrote the symphony. So the music that he composed, the 8th, Das Lied von der Erde, the 9th symphony, and then the unfinished 10th, is all about letting go. I mean, there's not a real tender love song in the music that he composed following the 7th. And I feel like this Andante Amoroso, the 4th movement of the 7th symphony, is truly one of the last simple, delightful, exquisite love song that he wrote when he himself was living in an almost perfect world compared to what his life became afterwards. And isn't it amazing that after all this night theme, darkness, mystery, and almost beauty that you cannot grasp, because it's so precious and ethereal and dreamy, from this he jumps to the most brilliant, the most solid and happy C major to end his symphony. C major, remember? And he takes this C major and brings it through such faraway lands of tonality before ending once again in C major. And the ecstasy one feels, the full circle, the closure, the brilliance, the happiness, the joy, the spirit just soaring, having been through all this shadowy, enigmatic, mysterious, not 100% stated, but something always in the gray area. And suddenly at the end of the piece, you have, yes, there it is. There is your C major. Wow, this this is one of the most ecstatic endings to any symphony throughout the history. And even in the last movement, there are contrasting characters, of course, that Mahler goes back and forth, but always in a different tonality, always dressed differently. And through so many variations and progressions and developments, when finally, once again, Mahler arrives at the main theme in C major, you see how far we have traveled, how much we have felt. What a master Mahler is at telling his story. And after all this, after all of the compositional techniques and significance, musical historical significance, personal significance from Mahler, all of that is secondary. What shines brightest is the heart and soul of Mahler. The message of this music, that life is not always set in stone. Nothing is ever clear, actually. That it may feel like we're living in that borderline, in that gray area most of the time. But that also holds so much beauty and meaning, and it brings so much emotional richness to our inner life. And in the 7th symphony, I really truly feel like I am soaring in his music. in all the strange harmonies, in all the mysterious leaps of the melody, and all these obscure, shadowy figures shifting, and the adieu, the nostalgia of the serenade at nighttime, to the brilliant, most dazzling conclusion of the symphony. What a way to start 2024! I can't wait! So here are some other things I just wanted to quickly share with you about the seventh. So this is a wonderful book, actually. If you're into reading letters, this is all the letters that Mahler wrote to his wife Alma. And just one interesting thing is he was thinking of conducting this seventh symphony, which he liked to call the most cheerful of my works, the most humorous. And by humor, Mahler always meant the higher humor, not the mundane, joking kind of funny, laugh yourself humor. He was thinking of actually conducting the Seventh Symphony as an introduction of his music to New York, but he changed his mind because he thought this work is too complex for people who had never heard a note of his music. So in the end, it was the first symphony with which Mahler introduced himself as a composer to the public in New York. This is the first score of Mahler 7 that I studied the piece with many years ago, actually. Of course, at first, everything is an enigma, it's a mystery. And like in my previous video, my work mainly is figuring out the relationship between the notes and trying to see what Mahler meant. What exactly did Gustav intend? This is the score that I used the last time I conducted this piece. Every time you come back to music like this, you get closer to the truth of the composer. My big score that I'm using, that I showed you in my last video, is already in my suitcase, ready to be traveling with me later today. This is called a pocket score, actually. This is smaller, as you can see. So it's handy to read it on the plane, for example. Here's the second movement. You see how he writes Nachtmusik at the top. And here's perhaps my favorite book on Mahler. It's called the Mahler Album. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? And let's see. This is when Mahler was conducting Beethoven 9th in 1905. Right? This is Mahler with his wife and 2 daughters. Happy family time. This is 1905. 7th was composed 1904, 1905. So it's right around that time, time before the hammer blows of Mahler's life struck. And here's another photo of Mahler hiking. Man of nature. Not only was he inspired, he brought a lot of nature into his music. The cowbells, distant cowbells that he marks in the 7th, for example, to be played discreetly and intermittently, as if really in nature. And there are a lot of bird calls and bird songs in Mahler, and oftentimes those bird songs he would mark like a bird. Oftentimes they'd be out of the tempo of the rest of the orchestra, so faster or slower. He really loved nature, and he loved the theater, a man of both the cosmopolitan city and out in the open, one with nature, harmonious. What a person, what a composer, what an artist, Mahler. So I hope this chat was fun for you as well. It was great for me to talk about the music. Probably more videos coming your way next week once I start the rehearsals. But for now, have a great weekend and check out Mahler 7. Happy listening. Bye.